The air in the Quartermain Mansion's grand ballroom was thick with a cloying scent of white lilies and the heavier, more suffocating weight of unspoken resentments. Sunlight streamed through the high-arched windows, catching the dust motes dancing above the heads of Port Charles' elite, but it did little to warm the chill that had settled over the room. Willow Tate stood at the altar, her silhouette framed by the towering floral arrangements, a vision in white lace that seemed to trap her rather than celebrate her. Beside her, Drew Kane stood tall, his jaw set in a line of triumphant stoicism, the very picture of a man who had conquered death and his enemies to claim his prize. From the second row, Michael Corinthos watched them, his body rigid, hands gripping the back of the pew in front of him until his knuckles turned the color of bone. He wasn't just an ex-husband watching the mother of his children marry another man. He was a man watching a crime in progress. His eyes darted from Willow's pale, almost translucent face to Drew's confident profile. The jealousy burning in his gut was a toxic mix of possessiveness and helpless rage. He knew, with a certainty that gnawed at his sanity, that Drew was playing a long, twisted game. But today, Michael was powerless to stop it. He could only watch as the woman he still loved pledged her life to a man he despised. The efficient, a somber man whose voice droned on about loyalty and truth words that felt like jagged shards of glass in this room of secrets cleared his throat. The silence that followed was heavy, pregnant with the anticipation of the inevitable question. If anyone here presents just cause why these two may not be lawfully joined in marriage, the minister intoned, his gaze sweeping the room with practiced gravity. Speak now or forever hold your peace. The pause stretched, agonizingly long. Michael's breath hitched, his muscles coiled, every instinct screaming at him to stand, to shout, to tear the facade down. But he hesitated. The legal threats, the restraining orders, the precarious custody arrangement had all held him frozen in a prison of hesitation. Then, a small, frantic movement broke the stillness. Stop. Don't marry him, Mommy. The voice was high and trembling, piercing the tension like a needle. From the side aisle, Amelia Corinthos, age 6 and looking far too small for the magnitude of the moment, sprinted toward the altar. Her sudden appearance sent a ripple of gasps through the congregation. She wasn't the toddler the town remembered. She was a terrified child, her face flushed, tears streaming down cheeks that were usually bright with laughter. Willow spun around, her bouquet nearly slipping from her trembling fingers. Amelia, she whispered, the color draining from her face. Baby, what are you doing? Amelia didn't stop until she was breathless at the foot of the altar, clutching the hem of Willow's dress as if it were a lifeline. She looked up, her eyes wide with a horror no 6-year-old should ever possess. She pointed a shaking finger directly at Drew. He's lying! Amelia screamed, her voice cracking under the strain of her sobbing. Uncle Drew is bad. He did it himself. The room went deathly silent. Even the dust motes seemed to freeze. Drew's confident mask fractured, a flicker of genuine panic darting behind his eyes before he smoothed his expression into one of pitying concern. Amelia, sweetheart, Drew said, his voice dropping to a soothing, patronizing baritone as he took a step toward her. You're upset. Let's get you too. No. Amelia shrieked, recoiling from his outstretched hand as if it were burned. She turned to the stunned crowd, desperate to be believed. I saw him. I was playing hide-and-seek in the office. Uncle Drew took the gun and he shot himself. It wasn't Mommy. It wasn't anybody else. He did it. The accusation hung in the air, grotesque and undeniable. The guests erupted into chaos. Whispers turned into shouts. Diane Miller was already on her feet, her legal mind racing, while Carly looked from Michael to Drew, her eyes narrowing as the pieces of the puzzle slammed into place. The narrative that had dominated Port Charles for weeks that an intruder, perhaps even Willow herself in a fugue state, had attacked the congressman was unraveling in seconds. Drew's face hardened. He looked at Willow, his eyes pleading for her to dismiss this as a child's fantasy. Willow, honey, she's confused. She's been through so much trauma. She doesn't know what she's saying. I do know. Amelia stomped her foot, her small body vibrating with the force of her truth. I saw the mirror. He looked in the mirror and did it. He said he would make Daddy pay. That sentence was the death knell. He said he would make Daddy pay. Willow looked at Drew, really looked at him, for the first time that day. The fog of manipulation that had clouded her judgment began to lift, replaced by a cold, dawn-like clarity. She saw the bead of sweat tracing a path down his temple. She saw the way his hands were clenched into fists at his sides. Drew. Willow's voice was barely a whisper, but in the acoustic perfection of the ballroom, it sounded like a thunderclap. Is she telling the truth? Of course not. Drew snapped, his veneer cracking. She's 6 years old. Willow. Michael put her up to this. He whirled on Michael, pointing an accusatory finger. You did this. You coached her to ruin this day. Michael didn't flinch. He didn't even stand up. He just sat there, a slow, dark smile spreading across his face. It was the smile of a man who had just been handed the ace of spades after a night of folding. He crossed his arms, leaning back with an air of relaxed victory that infuriated Drew more than any shout could have. I didn't say a word, Drew, Michael said calmly, his voice cutting through the din. But I think the police might want to hear what she has to say. As if summoned by the shift in the universe, the heavy oak doors at the back of the room swung open. Commissioner Jordan Ashford Stroden, flanked by 2 uniformed officers. The timing was impeccable, the kind of dramatic coincidence that only happened in Port Charles, yet it felt grounded in the grim reality of the moment. They had been waiting in the wings, perhaps tipped off, perhaps just monitoring the high-profile event, but Amelia's public testimony gave them the probable cause they had been lacking. Drew Kane, Jordan's voice was steel. We need you to come with us. This is ridiculous. Drew spat, backing away as the officers advanced up the aisle. You're arresting me based on the ramblings of a child? We're arresting you based on a confession uttered in the presence of 50 witnesses, Jordan corrected, stepping onto the altar, and for filing a false police report. We'll see what the ballistics say when we re-examine the angle of entry with this new theory in mind. Hands behind your back. The click of the handcuffs was the loudest sound in the room. Willow stood frozen, her hands covering her mouth, watching the man she was seconds away from marrying being restrained like a common criminal. The betrayal was absolute. She looked down at Amelia, who was now sobbing quietly into the skirt of her wedding dress, and then up at Michael. Michael's triumphant smile had faded into a look of intense, burning vindication. He met Willow's gaze, and for a moment, the distance between them years of hurt, betrayal, and misunderstanding seemed to shrink. He hadn't saved her. Their daughter had. As the police hauled a protesting Drew down the aisle, past the rows of stunned guests, the reality of the situation settled over the room. The wedding was over. The investigation was just beginning. And the war for the soul of the Corinthos family had just taken a turn that no one, least of all Drew Kane, had seen coming. We will learn about the devastating situation unfolding in Port Charles that threatens to completely unravel Mayor Laura Collins' political career and personal sanity. The shocking discovery that has left Port Charles reeling continues to send shockwaves through every corner of the community. And what started as a celebratory moment has quickly transformed into Laura's worst nightmare imaginable. The horrifying discovery that changed everything. Mayor Laura Collins finds herself trapped in an unimaginable nightmare that no amount of political experience could have prepared her for. The gruesome discovery of Professor Henry Hank Dalton's lifeless body concealed in the trunk of her personal vehicle has sent her entire world into a catastrophic tailspin during what should have been her moment of ultimate triumph. This wasn't just any ordinary day when Laura popped open her trunk expecting to find groceries or campaign materials. Instead, she came face to face with the cold, stiff corpse of a man she barely knew, crammed into the confined space like discarded cargo. The timing couldn't possibly be worse, coming immediately after her hard-fought victory in the mayoral election that she had campaigned tirelessly to win against fierce opposition. The visual horror of that moment has burned itself permanently into Laura's memory, replaying over and over again like a traumatic loop she cannot escape. The shock was so profound and overwhelming that Laura found herself completely unable to fulfill even the most basic ceremonial duties expected of a newly elected mayor. She couldn't muster the composure to deliver a victory speech to her supporters, couldn't face her political opponents with grace, and most critically, couldn't address the citizens of Port Charles who had placed their trust and faith in her leadership. This unprecedented breakdown in front of the entire community has raised serious questions about Laura's ability to continue serving in her mayoral capacity while dealing with such intense psychological trauma, dangerous alliances, and moral compromises. The situation has forced Laura into an uncomfortable alliance with Sonny Corinthos and Jason Morgan, two men whose connections to organized crime and the criminal underworld are well documented throughout Port Charles. While Laura has maintained a complicated but genuine friendship with Sonny spanning many years, built on mutual respect and occasional family connections, she never imagined she would find herself this deeply entangled in the dark, dangerous world that Sonny operates within on a daily basis. Sonny and Jason now find themselves on permanent standby, serving as her lifelines and protectors as she struggles to process the psychological aftermath of discovering Dalton's body and grapples with the moral implications of what comes next. Laura has always prided herself on maintaining clear ethical boundaries despite her personal relationship with Sonny. She has never endorsed, supported, or condoned the criminal activities that form the foundation of his business empire, even while acknowledging her genuine love and care for him as a person and friend. However, this horrifying incident has thrust her directly into complicity with the very criminal behavior she has spent years carefully distancing herself from publicly. She now finds herself compromised in ways she never thought possible, forced to rely on Sonny's expertise in covering up crimes and disposing of evidence, skills that come from his decades of experience in organized crime. The internal battle raging within Laura between her moral compass and her survival instincts threatens to tear her apart from the inside. Warnings that came too late. Laura's brother Marty Gray had repeatedly warned her about the corrupting influence that proximity to Sonny inevitably brings. Marty's prophetic words that Sonny corrupts everyone he gets close to are now echoing in Laura's mind with devastating clarity and painful accuracy. Throughout the intense election season, Laura faced relentless attacks on her character and integrity specifically because of her well-known friendship and family connections with Sonny, a man whose reputation as a crime boss precedes him everywhere in Port Charles. Critics and political opponents repeatedly questioned how someone maintaining such close ties to organized crime could possibly serve as an effective, ethical mayor for all citizens. Her controversial stance supporting Measure C further aligned her publicly with Sonny's business interests and practices. Even though Laura genuinely believed she was choosing the lesser of two evils in an impossible situation with no perfect solutions. Despite the political fallout, Laura never fully co-signed or approved of Sonny's criminal methods, but she does genuinely love him as a complicated friend and ally. The question now haunting everyone is whether Laura's impression and opinion of Sonny will undergo a fundamental transformation now that she finds herself personally wrapped up in covering up a serious crime she absolutely did not commit, but appears completely guilty of to any outside observer. The warnings from Marty and countless others about maintaining distance from Sonny's world are proving devastatingly accurate in real time. As Laura watches her carefully constructed life crumble around her, Laura's complicated criminal past. What many newer residents of Port Charles may not realize is that Laura Collins herself has a deeply complicated history that includes significant mental health struggles and periods of criminal behavior during her younger years. Her troubled past is decorated with questionable decisions and outright illegal activities, particularly during her legendary partnership with the late Luke Spencer, whose memory still looms large over Port Charles. Laura and Luke kept viewers absolutely riveted and tuning in faithfully for decades with their dangerous adventures, criminal escapades, and morally ambiguous choices that often landed them on the wrong side of the law. Their legendary romance was built partially on a foundation of crime and chaos that captivated audiences but would raise serious ethical questions by modern standards. The fact that someone with Laura's documented history of mental health crises, criminal involvement, and psychological instability ever secured election as mayor, let alone served multiple successful terms, raises legitimate questions about the vetting process and collective memory of Port Charles voters. While fans and residents genuinely love Laura for her strength, resilience, and eventual redemption, her past cannot simply be erased or ignored when evaluating her current crisis. She may have thoroughly washed her hands of that previous lifestyle decades ago, dedicating herself to legitimate public service and community leadership. But her current extreme reaction to being complicit in this cover-up seems almost excessive given her own historical involvement in similar situations alongside Luke. The breaking point approaches. Laura's prior documented mental health struggles and accumulated traumas from years of extraordinary experiences have numerous fans and psychology experts seriously wondering if a complete mental breakdown might be inevitable at this point. The psychological pressure of maintaining this massive secret while simultaneously serving as mayor and facing her own guilty conscience could prove too much for even someone as resilient as Laura Collins. Could we witness her spiral completely out of control, losing her grip on reality as the walls close in around her? The signs of psychological deterioration are already becoming apparent to those closest to her, who notice the haunted look in her eyes and her increasingly erratic behavior. Sonny and Jason may soon face their own nightmare scenario trying to rein Laura in and prevent her from making catastrophic decisions that would expose everyone involved. Keeping their disposal of Dalton's body completely under wraps becomes exponentially more difficult if Laura concludes that the only path to absolving herself of overwhelming guilt is confessing everything to the authorities, a confession that would inevitably take Sonny and Jason down with her in a spectacular fashion. The question haunting everyone is whether Laura's conscience will allow her to continue living with this secret, or whether her fundamental need for honesty and justice will override her sense of loyalty to Sonny and self-preservation instincts. The coming weeks will determine whether Mayor Laura Collins can survive this crisis intact, or whether this marks the beginning of her final, tragic downfall from grace and power in Port Charles. Next, we will learn about the ongoing mystery surrounding fan favorite Kirsten Storms and whether her future with General Hospital is truly secure. The question that has been burning in the minds of devoted soap opera enthusiasts for months now centers on one of Port Charles' most beloved legacy characters, Maxie Jones, and the talented actress who has brought her to life for so many years. Speculation has reached a fever pitch as viewers desperately seek answers about contract renewals, potential returns, and the unthinkable possibility of a recast. The silence from both the actress and the network has only intensified the curiosity and concern among the General Hospital faithful who have grown up watching Kirsten's portrayal of this iconic character, the big move that changed everything. The soap opera world was shocked when Kirsten Storms made the life-altering decision to relocate from the glitz and glamour of Los Angeles to the rolling hills of Tennessee, bringing her precious daughter Harper along for this major lifestyle change. This wasn't just a temporary vacation or a brief sabbatical from the demands of daily soap opera filming. This represented a fundamental shift in priorities and a complete reimagining of what work-life balance means for the busy actress. The move demonstrated Kirsten's commitment to providing a different kind of childhood experience for Harper, one away from the constant hustle of Hollywood and the relentless pace of the entertainment industry. Sources close to the actress suggest that the decision was months in the making, with Kirsten carefully weighing the pros and cons of uprooting her life, but ultimately choosing what she felt was best for her family's long-term happiness and well-being. What makes this situation even more intriguing is that Kirsten's ex-husband, Brandon Barish, who soap fans know from his memorable stint on Days of Our Lives, also made the cross-country journey to Tennessee. This coordinated relocation speaks volumes about both parents' dedication to maintaining a stable co-parenting arrangement for young Harper. Brandon's willingness to leave behind his own California connections and career opportunities demonstrates the former couple's mature approach to putting their daughter's needs first, regardless of personal sacrifice. The fact that both parents now reside in the same state allows for a much more fluid custody arrangement, with Harper able to easily move between households without the complications of long-distance travel or conflicting time zones. Industry insiders have praised this collaborative co-parenting model, noting that it's relatively rare in Hollywood for divorced couples to coordinate their lives so seamlessly in service of their children's stability and emotional health. The contract conundrum. Now here's where things get particularly complicated and where fans' anxiety levels start to spike. Kirsten has been notably absent from General Hospital's canvas for well over 6 months. An absence that feels like an eternity to viewers who are accustomed to seeing Maxie's vibrant personality light up their screens on a regular basis. This extended hiatus has naturally triggered widespread speculation about whether the beloved actress has quietly walked away from her role, whether negotiations have broken down behind the scenes, or whether something more concerning might be happening that neither the actress nor the network are willing to discuss publicly. The rumor mill has been working overtime, with various theories circulating on social media platforms and fan forums, ranging from the optimistic to the deeply pessimistic. Some devoted followers have been counting the days since Maxie's last appearance, creating detailed timelines and analyzing every cryptic social media post for hidden clues about Kirsten's intentions. However, before panic completely sets in among the General Hospital fanbase, it's important to note that Kirsten has not officially resigned from her position on the show, nor has she made any definitive statements suggesting that her time in Port Charles has come to an end. In fact, the situation appears to be far more flexible and modernized than traditional soap opera contracts typically allow, according to information that has trickled out through various channels. Executive producer Frank Valentini has been remarkably accommodating about Kirsten's new living situation and family priorities. The legendary producer has apparently agreed to keep Maxie's character very much alive and available, while simultaneously granting Kirsten the unprecedented flexibility to return to Los Angeles and resume filming whenever she feels the timing is appropriate for her personal circumstances. This kind of arrangement represents a significant departure from the rigid, 5-days-a-week shooting schedules that have traditionally defined soap opera employment, and it may signal a broader shift in how the industry accommodates performers who have families and lives outside of the studio. The social media silence. What's particularly noteworthy to those who have followed Kirsten's career over the years is her dramatically reduced presence on social media platforms, a change that feels almost jarring given her previously active online persona. For an actress who once regularly engaged with fans, shared behind-the-scenes glimpses of life on set, posted adorable photos of Harper, and maintained a relatively public profile, this retreat into privacy represents a complete 180-degree turn in her approach to public life. Her Instagram account, which once buzzed with activity and interaction, has become eerily quiet, with weeks sometimes passing between posts. When she does share content, it tends to be minimal, carefully curated, and devoid of the spontaneous, personal touches that once characterized her social media presence. This dramatic shift has left many followers feeling disconnected from an actress they once felt they knew through her online sharing. The consensus among longtime observers is that Kirsten has made a conscious, deliberate choice to embrace a much more private lifestyle in Tennessee, reserving her public-facing persona for those times when she's actively working in the entertainment industry and appearing in Los Angeles. This boundary between private life and public career makes complete sense from a personal wellness perspective, but it does leave fans feeling somewhat in the dark about her plans, her well-being, and her future intentions regarding General Hospital. Some supporters have expressed understanding and respect for her need for privacy. especially given the often intrusive nature of celebrity culture and the challenges of raising a child in the public eye. Others, however, have admitted to feeling a sense of loss, as if they've been cut off from someone whose journey they've been invested in for years. What happens to Maxie Jones? The elephant in the room, of course, is what all of this means for Maxie Jones as a character on General Hospital's canvas. Maxie isn't just another supporting player who can be written in and out of storylines without much consequence. She's a legacy character with deep roots in Port Charles history, connections to multiple family units, and decades of story history that fans hold dear. She's the daughter of the legendary Frisco Jones and Felicia Scorpio, to characters who themselves have iconic status in General Hospital lore. Maxie has been through countless dramatic storylines over the years, from heartbreaking losses to triumphant romances, from professional challenges to personal growth arcs that have resonated deeply with viewers. The character has evolved from a rebellious teenager into a mature, successful businesswoman and devoted mother, and that journey has been documented over the course of many years with Kirsten at the helm. The possibility of recasting such an integral character is something that fills many fans with absolute dread. While soap operas certainly have a long history of recasting roles when circumstances require it, legacy characters with decades of history are particularly challenging to recast successfully. Viewers form deep emotional bonds with specific actors' interpretations of beloved characters, and replacing a performer who has inhabited a role for so long often results in viewer resistance and difficulty accepting the change. The chemistry that Kirsten has built with other cast members over the years, the specific mannerisms and vocal inflection she's given to Maxie, and the emotional authenticity she's brought to the character's most vulnerable moments, all of these elements are virtually impossible to replicate, no matter how talented a replacement actress might be. General Hospital's creative team surely understands this reality, which likely explains their willingness to keep the door open for Kirsten's eventual return, rather than rushing to recast immediately. The waiting game. As the calendar pages continue to turn and Maxie's absence from the canvas stretches longer and longer, the most devoted fans find themselves desperately searching for any sign of life, any hint that their favorite actress hasn't completely abandoned the show that made her a household name in the soap opera world. Message boards light up whenever someone spots even the tiniest hint of General Hospital-related content on Kirsten's social media, with fans dissecting every word and image for hidden meanings. Every cryptic comment or vague reference gets analyzed to death, as viewers try to read tea leaves and predict when or if Maxie will return to their screens. The frustration of not knowing is perhaps worse than bad news would be, as uncertainty creates its own unique form of anxiety among the fan base. There has been some cause for cautious optimism, however. Kirsten herself dropped what many interpreted as a significant hint when she suggested, albeit in somewhat vague terms, that she might be back on General Hospital by the end of this year. That statement, brief as it was, sent ripples of excitement through the fan community and sparked renewed hope that Maxie's story isn't over after all. However, as the weeks have passed since that comment was made, and as the end of the year draws closer without any confirmed filming dates or official announcements from the network, some of that initial optimism has started to fade into anxious waiting. Fans are left wondering whether that time frame will actually hold true, whether it was an aspirational goal rather than a firm commitment, or whether circumstances have changed since that comment was made. The reality is that until Kirsten Storms herself makes a definitive public statement about her plans, or until General Hospital releases an official announcement regarding Maxie's status, everything remains speculation and hopeful interpretation of limited information. The actress has maintained her silence on the specifics of her contract situation, her return timeline, and her long-term intentions regarding the show. This communication vacuum, while perhaps necessary for Kirsten's personal peace and privacy, does create challenges for fans who simply want to know what to expect. The lack of clarity makes it difficult for viewers to know whether they should patiently wait for her return, brace themselves for a recast announcement, or prepare for the possibility that Maxie might be written out of the show entirely for the foreseeable future, as the situation continues to unfold and evolve. One thing remains crystal clear: the General Hospital fanbase's deep affection for both Kirsten Storms and the character she has portrayed so memorably for so many years. Whenever official news does finally break, you can be certain that it will be major headline material in the soap opera world, and fans will be ready to respond accordingly. Stay tuned to this channel for all the latest updates the moment any new information becomes available about this developing story.